Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Joining us on the show today is David King from Leaders in Ortho. And in this episode, we are talking about finding joy. As entrepreneurs, it's easy to get weighted down by the pressures of the business, but it doesn't have to be that way. David has some great information to share with us. So let's get started. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. All right, David, I am so excited to have you here on Hey Docs. So glad to see you. What I want to start off by doing is just having you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the work that you do in the ortho industry, and what's Leaders in Ortho. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, good. No, thank you, Jill. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the Hey Docs podcast.
Yeah.
The highlights is my name is David King. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm married to Chelsea, and I have two kiddos. They're 11 and 13, Sophie and Cade. And I've been a business and life coach in some capacity for about 10 years, and I've been a coach for about 25 years. I started out in fitness, and then I've just realized that people's fitness problems were never about their fitness. And in combination with my own life, I guess is what I like to say. My platform is leveraging your darkness into your greatness. And I got sober about 23 years ago. And so immediately when you come up against living life without a crutch like that, you come up against all your stuff, right? You call it your darkness, whatever you want. And it was like this thing that I picked up a lot through books, courses, seminars, coaches. But I just figured out that people who have this thing, right, they know in their mind, I'd like to call them undercover geniuses, right? They have this message, they have this passion, and it's corroded by like this darkness or this feeling of self-doubt or unworthiness or not good enough. And that can actually be like leveraged, like the wind underneath the wings of a jet airplane, to launch you into something that you know you're being called to do. And it just happened with me. And it's not just one time. Sometimes it can be daily. Other times there's phases of life where that happened. But that's where I have come from. And then a few years ago, I was in a course, and the person running the course said, "Hey, it's time for you to choose. Not real estate, not finance, not chiropractors, not orthodontists. Like, it's time for you to choose and go all in to understand the psychology, the business, like the problems, the awareness." And I was working with Dr. Jeannie Moody down in Austin. And we were just getting fantastic results with herself, her personal life, her team, her office. I said, you know what? I love this setup. I love the impact. I love the office. This is amazing. I'm going to go orthodontist. I think that like what I like to call reverse engineered production, where they take care of themselves and then that works its way back to starts and sanity and joy. There was a need for it. And I said, you know what? I'll be that guy. And I got on Dr. Krieger's podcast, and a few people got in touch with me. And then, man, I just started to fly around the country here and do my thing and help these guys leverage their darkness into their greatness. What was that, 5 minutes or so? That's who I am and what I do.
Love it. And I think that there is such a need for this in our industry. And I'm so glad that you have stepped into this space and really been a light in a lot of people's darknesses. I can tell you, Jeannie, since she was in residency, and I knew her through some of her darker years, and what a transformation personally in her business life as well. And it's exciting to see somebody stepping in, not only from, I do the business coaching and consulting component of it, but it's not necessarily the psychological component of it. And they all play in together for sure, as when you'll talk to us a little bit about. But I think that it is also, unfortunately, an area where I feel like there can be a lot of, I don't know, shame, or people don't want to I don't want to let somebody know that there's a chink in their armor or they
Hmm.
don't know everything. I feel like a lot of times, especially the doctors, have worked so hard, top of the class, and then now you have could be holding you back from even greater greatness. And so I'm wondering if you'll talk to us a little bit about why would somebody reach out? What might be some of those, I don't know, indicators that would make somebody say, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay to show some vulnerability and reach out.
Yeah, sure. Now, like the first thing that typically will come up in their mind, they won't recognize it like this, but and you may have heard it been put like this before, is that they're in a mental maze. And when human beings are in a maze, in other words, they can't find their way out, they start to associate that with feelings of despair. And they will define it as like lack of joy or overwhelm or like depressiveness. But it really is this human phenomenon of psychology where they just can't seem to get any traction, even though in most cases they're financially successful. Their practices are doing pretty good. If you rolled out the scroll of their life, people from the outside would go, "What are you bitching about?" And I think that's part of the issue is because they feel embarrassed that their life looks so good, but yet they feel so much
Yes.
despair in spite of checking off the boxes of life. I kicked ass at school. I got my doctorate. I started a practice impacting, tons of people's lives. And it's like, well, dang, I thought, and that's a common thing that I hear is I thought there would be more joy in this. And that there's that piece. And then of course, people are sometimes, Jill, in such a position that when they call me and they talk to me and we visit about this, it's almost like they've got it on their mind that it's such a grind that they have their eyes on retirement or like this fantastical thing of selling their business. And it's like their daily escape to think about it. And sometimes when I talk to them, they will be like, I know that you could help me, but I've only got 7 years left to my plan. And so I don't want to, interrupt that hiccup kind of thing. So there's that piece. And then there's I should be able to do this by myself. I should be able to do this. I should be. And to that thought's credit, 70% of what I do, and maybe what you do, is getting the doctor to do what they know in their own heart and their own soul that they need to do. I just come in as an empathetic executive type who's going to get the truth out of them. I mean, it really comes down to helping people face their own bullshit. You know what I mean? Whether it's a coach
Yes.
with me, whether it's me with a doc, and to do it in a way where they don't feel defeated or
Mhm.
shamed. They just feel heard and they feel, you know what, I see some light here, even a little, that I can make some traction, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think you're so right. Sometimes it's just getting out of our own way, just being able to do that. So let's just talk about, you hit on it a little bit already, but what are some of those bigger, I don't know, problems that you see
Mm,
orthodontists? You hit a little bit on sometimes they're too focused on maybe an end goal that they don't want to
mm,
work on themselves now, but
mm,
some of those areas that you may come across where that just present the problem for letting a
mm.
doctor maybe help work on themselves.
Sure. So what it'll present itself as is like an outer issue. And when I say that, it's like maybe their production is not where they want it to be, or maybe their marriage isn't where it wants it to be, or maybe they want a better relationship with their kids, or maybe it's their team and they're having difficulty with this.
Yes.
I don't know that there's any other entrepreneur in the world who has so much technical training in one area and about this much technical training in communication and leadership and vision and communicate. You get the point. And so it really puts them into a pretty big puts them into a pretty big bind there. But so they'll when they have those issues come up, they'll like what's first off they'll say what's wrong with me?
Mm.
Something's wrong here. And it's not about them personally, but this is what I see. And I would be the first to admit to you that it is so unique. In other words, I chose to go into the clinics. Like I fly there and I spend the whole day in the clinic talking to them and talking to their teams for 5 or 10 minutes to like really get a bead on the truth of what's happening because it's so inextricable from their life. But what you find is that most, not just doctors, but people, but it's certainly the orthodontist, almost 100%, even though their situations are so unique, they have some sort of survival skill that they adopted that they're leaning on. And
Mm.
so it could be a temper, it could be the silent treatment, it could be being too nice, like these little things that they've developed to help them cope. Anytime the pressure gets big from an entrepreneurial business standpoint, they will typically revert to this survival pattern, and it gets them into all sorts of issues that drives them down into that not good enough, unworthy. And it's like, how do I find my way? How do I find my way out of that? What does that even look like? And most times they know it, but it's like an unconscious knowing. And so when I mention it to them, they're like, oh yeah, like I know that I do that, but they don't ever pinpoint that as like the source of how they've got themselves so tangled in a web where they've lost some of the joy or a lot of the joy in their profession and even in their personal lives.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to agree with you. I've seen that so many times, and it is hard to articulate it. And even for me as a consultant, sometimes going in, it's hard to put your finger on, okay, what is that is consistently causing the strife that's
Mm,
going on? And as you said, many times it pulls back to something else. And I love what you said, where they're leaning on something else to get whatever is happening in their practice that they think is moving them forward or whatnot. I'm curious about, you just said something about joy. And I think that
mm,
this is something that I run into so much when I'm talking to doctors, and joy and happiness. And, the being able to, I feel like it, it goes to burnout a little bit too, where,
mm,
I have these docs that they are just going through the motions, and they're checking all the boxes, and they're doing all of the things that
mm,
should be making them feel good, from a success standpoint to a peer standpoint to all of this. And yet they don't have joy, and they aren't happy, and they're questioning, why am I 10 years in or 12 years in, and I don't even want to get up in the morning. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to be around the team that I've chosen to surround myself with 8 to 10 hours a day. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little
mm.
bit about that, because I see this
Yeah.
so much in our industry, and I think it's something we have to be really cautious about.
Yeah. So this is where I relate this to my own life and the way I was able to move through it and what I attempt to coach docs to put into their own lives. And I call it the 4D life. And it's the four domains of life, right? Your body, your being or your mindset, your balance or your family, and then your business. And if you don't, if I don't, or if we don't have those four concrete flywheels moving forward a little bit, in other words, my concrete flywheel moving forward is different than somebody else's,
Mhm.
but having traction in all four areas is, to me, is the key to heaven on earth. And that's what it's like, what am I missing here? And so people will typically focus on that business, but they'll lose their health and wellness. Or they'll have they're killing it in the fitness and in their business, but their mindset work is not non-existent. Or they know they yell too much at their kids, but they just keep trying harder instead of doing something different. It's not like they're bad people. I was a yeller. And so this is one of the things that I work with docs on, not all of them. It's like the high pressure of everything going on. You try to be calm and then you snap, and then you yell. And then I was like, I've got to do something about this. My son was 6 years old. He's nearly 12 now, but we were on a ski vacation and he was bouncing down on the bed and he hit his sister. And I just got in his face and I was like, son, you cannot hit your sister. It's not okay. What? And I just went into that deal. And right after that, this is something I'd been thinking about. I thought, I don't want my son's lasting impression of me to be like in his face
Mhm.
yelling, because memory banks in the amygdala lock in with emotion. And so those facial expressions, those tones, those are the things that kids will recall. I have got to do something different here. I can't just wish, I can't try. And so I came up with this idea of the yell calendar, just an amalgamation of stuff that I had heard. And I got the kids in on it. And I said, hey, look, every time that daddy goes a day without yelling, we're going to put an O. And every time I do yell, we're going to put an X. And you guys can be the judge. And so for the first month, I had two or three, and I did really well. And some of them I felt like they weren't total yells, but they said they were. So we marked them.
Mhm.
The second month, I backslide 4 and then 2. The point is, I'm not a yeller anymore. I don't yell. It's not even part of my personality. So people can change. And
Yes.
the reason that I bring that up is because there are strategies for people to look at and go at these different domains, even though they might not have the time. It was so important for me to incorporate that. And I mean, this is my point on the 4-domain life, is that even if it's something small, so like you move your body in the morning, and then like mindset, even 5 minutes of some sort of breathing technique, a little bit of gratitude for your family every day, whether you send them a text or a note or a video, and then in your business, doing something positive towards your vision, and then looking at that on a weekly, monthly basis, it's gamified, right? Like I'm not intrinsically motivated to do anything. And I think a lot of people will sit around going, I wish I was motivated to do this. Like, I wish I had it in me. Like, I rarely ever do the thing because I have this like inner drive. Like, I always have to create something on the outside. And for me, the big game is I get that gateway to heaven. I get that my own unique greatness from leveraging my darkness. And I know it's, look, dude, if you don't live the 4-domain life, you're going to wake up in a funk. You're going to be grumpy, narcissistic, just doomsday thinking kind of thing. And I think that a lot of people, some people have won what the happiness hypothesis is a book. It calls the cortical lottery. And they're just born with a naturally like optimistic outlook, maybe a lot of serotonin running through their brain. But a lot of us, we wake up from that evil pillow and it's doomsday. You know what I mean? So I know every day I got to do a little something to get myself back to the CEO of my life in connection with God, to say, I'm going to be of service. And so I move through and work with those 4 domains and live that 4-domain life. I coach it. And then here's the last point, Jill, is that in order to do that, what do you do, Dave? I get that intelligently. Like that all makes sense. But how do you get people to start to move when they're in that maze and in that funk? And so the first thing that I have people do, and that if they watch this, they can also do, is that they take current inventory of where they are in the 4 domains. So I always have doctors, before I go visit them, to stream of consciousness for 15 minutes with an alarm on their body. Where is it at? What's going on? What are the facts? What are the good things? What are the things you prefer were different? Same thing with their being or their mindset, their spirituality. Same thing with their family, and same thing with their business. And it's very rare that people will take a foundational stock of the facts in their life. They just have narratives running on what sucks or what's wrong. And so when they wish it was different, it comes from a place of not current facts. It's just bullshit or narratives. And so it's very difficult to get traction that way. And so when you get them the foundation, they can see where they're at. It creates an environment and, a psychological condition where they can actually see a path to take action. And so that's the first step. And like I said, it's just a reverse engineered process to say, we got to get you moving on taking care of yourself. And then the other things, like the starts will come around, the production is there, the teamwork, you'll be able to do what you know in your heart and your mind that you already know you need to do.
We all know running and growing an orthodontic practice isn't easy, and technology is supposed to help you, but oftentimes your practice management software doesn't. Some of them are even clunky and need lots of third-party add-ons. That's why I recommend Greyfinch to my startup and existing clients, because Greyfinch is different. Greyfinch is an all-in-one web-based platform that saves you time and boosts your client base, productivity, and bottom line, with no downloads or third-party software needed. It even has tools you can't find anywhere else, like televisits, two-way email and text messaging, a patient self-service hub, and much more. Want to see how it can grow your practice? Visit greyfinch.com/Jill Allen and see why countless leading practices have made the switch. By now, we all know I talk to a lot of doctors and give advice to practices in every stage of their life cycle. And one question my docs ask all the time is, who do you recommend for marketing to attract more new patients from the internet? My answer? Easy. I have been recommending Mary Kay Miller and her team at Kaleidoscope for the better part of a decade. Why? They are thorough, professional, and transparent. Kaleidoscope Digital Marketing is who you want to talk to because they understand how to market in the orthodontic world, and they offer tools that are affordable and easy to use. I'm telling you, if you're looking to step up your digital presence, Kaleidoscope should be your first call. Go to contactkl.com to request your free digital marketing consultation. That's contactkl.com.
Oh gosh, such good
little pearls that you're dropping here for us. And when I think about that, it is so easy for us to get these little tracks running in our heads, and
Mm,
as business owners, as leaders, and whatever we may be doing. And I think a lot of times some of the negative self-talk that we have,
mm,
or the untruths that we tell ourselves, can
hmm.
really can affect our lives in ways we just don't even see or understand. And I love thinking about this for how it even bleeds into our ortho practices. The way you, Doc, as the leader, the CEO of your company, the way you come in and the way you start the day for the team kind of sets the tone for the team, right? A lot of times. And
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I would say absolutely.
for the direction, you can set all these goals you want, but if you aren't on the right mental path to get there, they aren't necessarily going to be things that you're going to achieve easily, I think.
Yeah. And Joe, one of the points I like to make on this, and this is something that a lot of my clients laugh about, is when people think about these things, a lot of times their mind will go right to the David Goggins solution. You know what I mean? Right to the orthodontic excellence thing. And it's, look, I need you to get on a Peloton bike for 5 minutes. I need you to do 10 burpees before you get in the shower. Just start where you stand. It's Atomic Habits is a wonderful book. I don't know if you've read it or not.
No.
It's James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits, and I thought I'd read everything on
Oh,
habits, right?
Atomic
Like I just
Habits. Yes.
Atomic Habits, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Atomic Habits. The main premise for me in that book was you've got to make, because I'm always like, we all come from a school of go big or go home,
Hmm.
and so to say you're going to read one page a day sounds ridiculous. But if you read 0 pages over a month versus 30, that's a gigantic percentage increase or decrease. And so whether it be exercise or reading a page of book or just some comment that you make to your family, like a kiss on the head to your kid every day for 30 days in your business, if you like show up to the huddle with one little thing you'd like to do differently, it's just get started and it'll allow you to break free of that mud that's got you in that centrifugal force of self or that darkness. I just like to make that point is that when people hear that, they're like, oh man, because that's the other thing. People don't do this because of money, time, or fear,
Mm.
right? And when I say do this, make a shift in their life, hire a coach, whatever, make a big decision. And so they go through those things in their mind. And then that time piece, a lot of people say, man, I don't have something to add to my plate, right? This coach is going to come
Yes.
in and have me do 100 things, 50 more meetings, a deal. And it's like, look, that's not how it works, man. I mean, you think of some old school stuff, but we have got to get you moving on your own
Hmm.
life, your own spirit, your own soul, on what it is that you already know you need to do, and realize that you have agency, not only in your own business, but your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think, especially in our industry, it's usually not the finances that are the issue. Time,
Mm-hmm.
probably, but I think a lot of it is fear
Mm-hmm.
of being vulnerable with somebody, fear of kind of facing the areas that we don't even want to face on our own. I
Yeah.
know that's a dark area that I don't want to go to, and I don't want to have to sit under the weight of that, even though it'll be better when I get through it. But I've got to imagine that's where probably a lot of people, when they finally take that step, probably fear was one of the bigger things, which then makes me think about a little bit into mental health. And I think, again, going into this is an area that I think post COVID, we've seen more and more people talking about it. And I think we've got a generation that it's not cringy to talk about mental health or this, that, or the other, and it's much more accepted. But again, I still think it goes to this: I'm this doctor, I have this practice,
Mm-hmm.
I should have it all buttoned up. I shouldn't be feeling depressed. I shouldn't be unhappy. I've got champagne problems, as my friends call it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can give a little maybe insight on what as to
Mm-hmm.
why you think it is that people should be investing in this, and maybe taking a chance on themselves to get uncomfortable, to ask for help.
Yeah, the first thing is that it just doesn't have to be this way. If you have those feelings, if you feel like you're up against it and there's just not a whole lot of joy, but you don't want to admit it because your friends and family would think you're being an a-hole or something like that. So I think understanding that you're important, and this is the way that I say it, is you've got to prep the number one asset. In other words, you are your number one asset. And if we don't get that going in a way that is at what I like to call high frequency or connected to God or source energy, whatever you want to call it, like a lot of things are not going to go well. And so getting past that embarrassment of that piece, I think is a big part. You say, how do you do that? One of the ways is pain. So when people get into enough suffering, they're like, hey, what are you doing? Like Facebook groups are good for that. I would say I'm not in Facebook groups, but this is where people have told me, hey, look, somebody commented in a Facebook group on the exact same psychological situation that I feel like I was facing with my personal life and with my team or whatever it looks like. So communicating and speaking, I think we're great at holding things in and just recognizing that speaking to somebody that you trust is like the first step. Even before you ask for help, like going to one of your besties and having a conversation about what this looks like for real, somebody that you can trust, I think is really the first step to helping them get past that and realize like you are this important, like this whole show is riding on you. And if you break, this show breaks. And it's really just reversing the psychology on what it looks like, as opposed to what we were brought up with, which is work hard, everything goes well. I'm going to work harder, everything's going to get better. And that's just a wheel that doesn't work. It's like spokes are broken. It's like, it will lump along. But I say this all the time. What got you here will not get you there. And so a lot of times what I see is that orthodontists are burning what I would call dirty fuel. They've got a chip on their shoulders. People said they couldn't do it. They've got something to prove. They're super competitive from like when they were younger, and they've got this, the ego has been built up to protect them. And this is, I'm not a psychologist, but this is maybe not first semester, but like second semester, like Psych 102. It's that your ego is not your amigo. And when you're up against it, struggling, it's okay. Something needs to change about the fuel that I'm burning to go to this next level, to live this next piece. And this is typically the calls that I will get at somebody at this point in their life, whether they're at 35 or 40 years old or 47. They're up against that wall that their survival skills are not working any longer. And they know something has got to shift or change. And so that's what it's just the awareness, I think, Jill, is the big piece. Is just become hyper aware that, oh my God, working harder is not going to work here. I have got to do something different, or I'm going to be a decade into this going, what in the heck?
Yeah, for sure. Good insight there for sure. So what are some tips that you would give docs advice for overcoming this a little bit?
There's a very easy one. It'd be what I like to call it a God walk. And you go out with no technology and you go hit something that you haven't done in a while, like a 5-mile walk, right? Like out in nature, to consider like where you are, who you are, what you're up against, what is it really that I need to shift? And people tend to get answers that way. If they're not used to meditating, or if they're spun out, like just starting to meditate in the morning, like that's really not going to help get them to the next level. You can't out meditate actions that you're not taking, if that makes sense. If you need to make a move at work and you're not doing it, you're not going to meditate that away. But you can go do a God walk and get totally clear on what you need to do and how you need to do it, whether that's ask for help or whether that's have a strong conversation or whether that's something with your kids. The God walk is a really good way to do that. The second one is I encourage people to do that all the time. It's a spiral notebook. You go get it at your local grocery store or Walgreens, old school 9th grade notebook, and you just start to brainstorm on your body, brainstorm on your mind, and listen, set the timer for 3 minutes if you want to do that. Just get started. Take an inventory or a stock of where you are. Man, it helps to shift people into a willingness to do something different. And then thirdly, I would say, man, exercise. Like in whatever way you can. If you move your body, it helps us as human beings to get out of a funk. There's just mountains and mountains of evidence to suggest it, but everybody listening to this knows, I'll say everybody, 99% of the people listening knows that is a helpful thing to them to get them clear. And then the last thing is, this is something that I coach specifically, is what I call no hesitation. And so when I hesitation starts to turn into fear. It's like you hesitate, and then you isolate, and then you get up in your head, and then it starts to turn into I suck, or this is never going to work. And so when you get like the voice comes, your conscience speaks, whatever it is, do not hesitate and just go. It's like the breaths are getting shorter and the life is going to end. Just go.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I think that is such good information. And I think about that even in my own life. How can I apply that? And you are so right, especially the last one really resonates a lot with me. And just the so many times we just get so wrapped around the axle of thinking about, like, I'll use this podcast as an example. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do it and I could sit there and just think about all the reasons why, oh, I say too much, I do this too much, I do that, nobody's going to listen. Or you just get in there and you do it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And I think that is such a good piece of advice, because we so easily can get hung up on perfection. And I love, I'm sure you probably read the book or heard of the book, Brave Not Perfect, or yeah, Brave Not Perfect. And I love that it's the same concept in, you just need to do. You don't need to worry about the perfection that will come or not come. But the more you sit and just ruminate over, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I don't know if
Yeah.
I can bring this new technology in. I don't know if I can blah, 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 blah. Then you just get stuck.
Own BS, right? And so that's what I help them with, just vision.
Mm.
And it seems too big or too complex. So then they hesitate, and then it gets wrapped around the axle. And so if you ask 10 of the doctors that I've worked with, it's like, hey, what is one of the most valuable things he does? Man, he brings like all the windows that are open in my mind. He brings the windows all down to something very clear that I can do to move me forward. And so that's something that I would share with them is, look, if you can't do it, it's too big or it's too complex. Sit down with a piece of paper and say, hey, look, what is the thing, the root here that I can do to move this forward?
Ah, I love that. I love that. This has been great, as you've just, oh, I'm so excited about what we've been
Thanks, Jill.
talking
Thanks. It's
about.
just, I love to talk about this stuff. I love being here. Thank you. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that? If they're, I'm sure there's a lot of people that this has really
Mhm.
been like, he's meeting me just right where I'm at.
Yeah.
Maybe I am going to take that step this year. This is going to be
Mhm.
my year to make a change. How would somebody get a hold of you?
Very easily, they can email me at david@leadersinortho.com. So if you just wanted that, look, david@leadersinortho.com, you can shoot me an email. It'll be super simple. If that seems too complicated or you'd rather do it differently, you can go to leadersinortho.com. Just go to leadersinortho.com, or you can Google David King Orthodontist and it will pull up leadersinortho.com. And to go to that website, and you can read a lot about what I've talked about today. And there's an opportunity there for you to set up a Zoom call so we can really chit chat and say, hey, look, what is the 411? You know what I mean? What WTF? Where are you at and what's going on here? And I'm only one person. So I'm always straight with people on, hey, look, this is probably what you should do. Or here's some things that I see and that could really help you out. So those are some ways that people can get a hold of me.
That's great. David, this has been wonderful. Again, I know that you have spoken into some people's hearts today, and this is exactly what somebody needed to hear. I'm positive about that. So thanks for sharing all of your knowledge.
You're welcome, Joe. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being the source.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I like to finish up Hey Docs, one of the things I like to do is finish us up with a little speed round. Are you ready to finish us up with the speed round?
Oh, man. Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah, sure.
Now, it's nothing like what you'd be doing in the gym. This is coffee or tea?
Coffee. Decaf.
Ah, excellent.
30 years it wasn't decaf, but just recently I had an ablation on my heart. Turned 50 a couple of days ago, so I've been like decaf for 2 years. I'll probably go back to caffeine, but for right now I'm on a pretty good streak.
Yeah, that's great. I have been working introduce decaf in the afternoons because I could drink coffee all day long. All right, how about a favorite book?
Outlive by Peter Attia. Every single human should read that on the face of the earth. It's a seminal work. Like, it's anybody over 45 especially.
So true. So true. It's deep, but it's so good. So good.
Yeah. Audio, they can move through it. It'll change lives. Amazing.
Yep. Favorite outdoor activity?
I like to walk in my neighborhood. Yeah.
That's perfect.
The deer, walk around the deer, do my God walks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
Oh, I would say helping people leverage their darkness into their greatness. That's what they'll say.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And then final one, best piece of advice you've ever received.
I tell you what, this is the thing that's helped me. This is the thing that's helped me personally the most. And it was about a morning routine. And I'll give you the quick deal. I went to a course and they took us out like walking, meditating, journaling. Then we went to take a shower. We came into the office to do the training. He's like, how do you guys feel? And we're like $1 billion. He's like, never forget that. You have got to prep the number one asset if you want to be optimal, sharpen the axe. And then a guy asked, he said, should we do it on the weekends? He said, I'll tell you this, only do it on the days you want to feel powerful. And it
That's
locked
good.
in. So I do it. Yeah, just do it. I just do it every day to make sure that I'm the best dad, best coach, best husband, best guy I can be. So that prepping the number one asset is the best advice I've ever gotten.
That's great. That's great. Again, thank you so much for being on Hey Docs. And again, I am sure that there is somebody that needed to hear this today. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing in
Good
our
deal.
industry. All right.
Thank you, Jill.
See ya.
Bye-bye.